Good afternoon. I'm Dennis Galucki. Welcome to our last program for the spring season. This is the 544th Imagine Buffalo program and our 166th Imagine YouTube program hosted by our wonderful Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thank you for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature, or C-SAAHN, as I like to pronounce the acronym, and ImagineLifelongLearning.com. Now, before we get started, just a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted and your video turned off. If you have a question or comment, please type it into the chat box and we'll go through them at the end of the presentation. We are recording this program so you can watch it again later on the Downtown Central Library's Facebook page and YouTube channels. And please, we hope you share the link with others. Now, on to our featured speaker. Amit Taneja currently serves as the inaugural Senior Vice President and Chief Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility, or the acronym of IDEA. He's the Chief Officer at Chautauqua Institution. He moved to Chautauqua County in May 2021 as an active member of the Chautauqua County IDEA Coalition and serves as a board member for the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation. He previously served as the Associate Provost for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the College of the Holy Cross. He provides leadership on a number of institutional priorities, including the creation of an IDEA strategic plan, staff hiring, training, policy, and practice updates. His scholarly research focuses on how historically underrepresented students succeed in college. He serves as a consultant and speaker on a range of leadership, diversity, and inclusion topics. In his spare time, Amit loves to garden, make his own bow ties and quilts, and has his own techno DJ podcast. All right, welcome. This is going to be an interesting program. It's part of what I call the Buffalo Chautauqua Exploration. We've been doing this for 15 years, and this is a highlight moment as we get ready to get to Buffalo Day at Chautauqua, the 15th annual one. We'll talk about that at the end. But now, Amit, bring us up to date with your activities at Chautauqua Institution. Take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Dennis, and thank you to all the folks who are participating live online. Really appreciate the opportunity to be in community with you all. I'm delighted to tell you a little bit about what's happening in Chautauqua County and kind of link it to Dennis's vision to focus this year's Buffalo Day at Chautauqua Institution to be focused around advancing racial equity work. I know that Buffalo is doing some incredible work in coalition, in partnership with community organizations and foundations and government agencies to advance racial equity. And even before I had actually arrived to Chautauqua Institution, as soon as I was named into this position, I started getting emails that there was a group forming in Chautauqua County inspired by the Buffalo Equity Roundtable, and unfortunately at that time, the murder of George Floyd, that folks were organizing to make substantive changes and to do this work in coalition. So even before I had stepped foot in Chautauqua County, I was hearing about the incredible work happening in Buffalo. So I am extremely excited that I get to share with you some of the work that we are doing here. All right, so I'm hopeful that everybody can see my slides. So let me see if I can. Okay, I moved my slide. If it didn't move for you all, please somebody unmute and tell me, but I'm gonna assume that it worked.
It did.
It did, all right, great. So there's two things I wanna talk to you about. So one, I just wanna tell you about the work that we are doing in Chautauqua County around racial equity and some ideas on how we can learn from one another. Our Buffalo folks coming to Chautauqua County, we have a lot to learn from you, but maybe there's some things we're doing that may be interesting to our participants from Buffalo who come on the Buffalo Chautauqua Day. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what to expect for the Buffalo Chautauqua Day as well, which is scheduled for July 23rd. So let me start by saying a few words about what's happening around the racial equity work. As I said, it started with an informal coalition of nonprofits and governments and businesses, a small group of about, like, I think 25 different agencies and organizations coming together saying, this is the moment we need to do this work and that we need to do it together. So we started having some meetings thinking about what are the immediate pressing needs of the community, what we all had to bring to that conversation. And that we brought in some consultants from the outside who actually had been born and raised in Chautauqua County, and we formalized that into a coalition called the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility Coalition of Chautauqua County. I'm going to give you a very 10,000 feet in the air overview of this. There's a lot more detail that I'd be happy to provide if anybody has questions. As we started doing this work, we recognized that Chautauqua County is 86% white folks. And so 14% are people of color or multiracial. And we found that many of the leadership of our community organizations represented those demographics. So as we started to do the work, it was really important for us to think about how do we center the voices of directly impacted individuals in this process, so that it wasn't a bunch of good-hearted folks who were going to go fix problems without really being in a deep and meaningful conversation with directly impacted communities. So part of as we went through that process, we recognized that our mission was to make Chautauqua County a place where everyone belongs and has opportunities to thrive, especially for those who have been historically marginalized. I want to take a moment, excuse me, to situate some other information that made this this coalition even more important. Like many other rural counties, Chautauqua County has been experiencing a decline in population. On average, 2 people permanently leave Chautauqua County on a daily basis. So let me say that again. 2 people every single day leave Chautauqua County on a permanent basis. So I'm basing that on the census trend. So looking at the last 10 years, roughly over 7,500 people have left. So, that's what it translates to. That trend has been around for actually 3 or 4 decades. Maybe it wasn't as steep as 2 people leaving. But when we look at demographic trends, there are some folks who are moving to Chautauqua County, and those tend to be communities of color. And so as we think about the long-term vitality of the county itself, and to make sure that there's cultural organizations and businesses and people who want to raise families here, it became really clear that this county that has historically been primarily white, that we needed to create more conditions that would lead to an environment of welcome and belonging for not only our existing diverse communities here, but for the new folks who are vital to the success of this county. So that's kind of what our mission really was about creating the conditions for thriving for people who have been historically marginalized. And so then our focus area really was to identify what are the barriers, what are the concerns, what are people experiencing right now? And we knew that we were going to hear that here's 15 things we could work on. But we wanted to work in partnership with community organizations to say, what's the top 3 or 4 issues that we can really make a concentrated effort on, knowing that we probably wouldn't have the capacity to tackle all 15 things at the same time. Excuse me. And then we really wanted to emphasize that it is not one agency or one organization that was going to fix this, because a lot of the issues that people face are much more systemic in nature. And so the approach was, how are we going to collaborate to modify our systems, to alter our systems, or to create completely new systems that lead to the sense of racial equity and belonging. So that's kind of was our collective approach. There were some folks who were like, oh no, this is urgent. We just need to run in and do this work. And then there was a balancing force of people saying, yeah, but we really got to build trust and relationships with directly impacted communities to kind of do this work. So I'm not going to read this whole slide, but I want to give you just a sense of what our conceptual model looked like. So in the first phase, we started doing, I'm going to show you a picture. We started doing these town halls in both the North County and South County. So if you don't know this about Chautauqua County, we are a very geographically large county, even though our population is only 128,000 people. But it can take more than an hour to get from the northernmost to the southernmost part of county. And we do have a couple of high density population areas, with Jamestown being one center of population, and Dunkirk and Fredonia being the second. So we did listening sessions with the African American and Hispanic Latinx community in both North and South County locations. That was our first phase. Let's get together with folks, hear about their concerns, what is really informing and shaping their experience living in Chautauqua County. And then we had data teams to like really condense what we heard, right? And we identified 13 different areas of concern. And then we went back and met with those communities again and said, this is what we heard you say. Are we correct? And are these the top 3 or 4 or 5 priority areas? And so we went through a very slow but methodical process to make sure that it wasn't the organizations and leaders kind of saying, well, I think we gotta, work on this thing that is important to me, but it's really about what's important to the communities that are directly impacted. So that was our second phase. And our third phase, which is where we are right now, which is in the red, is to create solution teams. So let me talk about that. So we had our listening sessions, and we identified 14 different areas that were important. The 3 that rose to the top, that were the most mentioned, that felt like were the most pressing priorities of our community, was to focus on educational equity, was to focus on business and employment opportunities for historically marginalized communities. And then the last one was to think about community-based social activities. How do we create a sense of community and belonging? Because numbers wise, we're not talking, as I said, right? Like the population of the county is 128,000. So the African American population is just over 2,000 people in the county. The Hispanic, Latino, Latinx population is a little over, I want to say it's about 7 or 8%. So just about under 10,000 people. So those were some of the 3 things that rose to the top. So what we've done now is created solution teams from different organizations, and every solution team has representation from the community. And particularly, we created paid positions of community representatives, community liaisons from the African American and Hispanic community as a starting point. Not to say that other historically marginalized populations don't matter, but that's our starting point of our work. And now we're starting to think about solutions. What is it what needs to change? How can we change it? And we already have some good feedback from our community meetings. So my hope is that when we have folks from Buffalo come here, because Buffalo has been doing the Racial Equity Roundtable for longer than we have, we continue to look to the work that has happened in Buffalo, and particularly work that has happened in coalition with other people, how leaders have come together, how organizations have come together. We are really taking a systems approach to change here. And so that's what we really want to hear. So if when you come here and you come to the moderated session, for example, share your ideas. Please talk to our community leaders. We are going to invite a number of community organizations and government leaders to come to the grounds for free from Chautauqua County, in addition to all the folks who are going to be coming from Buffalo, because we want to create as much opportunities for our leaders and community members to be in conversation with our both leaders and community members from Buffalo who are coming here. We're really going to center racial equity work that's happening in Buffalo. And my hope is that as the coalition, we're still young and new to this work. My hope is that by hearing your stories and strategies and the things that are happening in Buffalo, that our leaders and organizations in Chautauqua County feel inspired and can get some very concrete strategies about what is the next phase or what is the kind of work that we could be doing together. So that was a little bit of a preview of the racial equity work happening in Chautauqua County. Let me talk just a little bit around Buffalo Do It Chautauqua Institution. If you've never come before, it's an annual tradition. I'll ask Dennis at some point to remind me how many years. I was going to look it up and I didn't get to it on time. Tuesday, July 23rd. It is free for Buffalo residents. Deeply grateful to the Martin Group and the C-SAAHN Fund at the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo, and of course, our good friend Dennis Galucki for his support in helping create this wonderful connection between Buffalo and Chautauqua County. If you're looking for more information, just please go to buffaloday.chq.org. We have more information on that website. Anybody in the Buffalo zip code area of 14201 through 280 are eligible to come for free for the entire day. You can order tickets by calling that number, 716-357-6250. That's our ticketing office. And if you are able to get your tickets secured before July 11th, you will also receive a free parking pass for the day. So I highly encourage you to order those tickets as soon as possible. And that information, again, is on that buffaloday.chq.org website that I have listed on every single slide. So give you a little bit of a preview of what to expect in the morning. We are going to have the Reverend Kate Braestrup she's the chaplain of the week. She's a really interesting chaplain. So she serves as a chaplain to the Maine Wildlife Commission. Those are the folks when somebody goes missing in the mountains or they're missing in the waterways. She's sitting with the families and the people who are trying to do rescues. Her ministry is really, really interesting and very inspiring. So if you're so inclined, please get here early to attend our morning worship service. In the our Chautauqua lecture series, main stage speaker for that day is Margaret Sullivan. Many of you might know her. She is a journalist. She got her early journalism work happened at the Buffalo News, I believe. And she is going to do a lecture to talk about local journalism and the challenges of local journalism and how it's funded and what's happening so that we are able to get independent, accurate, local news that is not being, sort of controlled by major media corporations. I am sure she's going to offer some very insightful thoughts for us. At 2 o'clock, we have a lecture with Surab Amari. He's the founder and editor of Compact. He tends to be somewhere between libertarian and conservative. So he may have some really insightful things to say, and he may challenge some of us. I always appreciate having my own thoughts and values challenged because it forces me to think a little bit more deeply, but I'm really looking forward to his lecture. And in the same location at the Hall of Philosophy at 3:30 p.m., there's going to be a panel that I will moderate. And I'm so delighted to announce that Glenn Jackson and Felicia Beard, who I believe were the speakers at last month's or Imagine Buffalo presentation. Glenn, of course, is from M&T Bank and Oshai Foundation. I believe he's the new incoming board chair there. And Felicia Beard is with the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo and from the Greater Buffalo Racial Equity Roundtable. I know they're both very well-known and fierce leaders, as is Mike Ball from Highmark. So I will have the pleasure to moderating that panel and asking them to highlight the amazing racial equity work that is happening in Buffalo. So we highly encourage you to come for that. Um, uh, some other exciting things for you to put in your planner. At 5 o'clock, there will be a film presentation called The Niagara Movement, The Early Battles for Civil Rights. And it really sort of focuses on the Niagara region in the civil rights movement. I have not seen the movie yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. So I hope that you will come and join us. And last but not least, Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra is very pleased to invite our guest conductor for the evening, Swan Lin, and she's been here before. She's absolutely amazing. She's just magical to see her perform. If you've never been to Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra, I was not a classical music lover until I started going to Chautauqua Symphony Orchestra, and it has very much changed my life. As Dennis said earlier, I'm into techno music, which is very different than classical music. But to see a live performance, it just lights up every part of your being. All right, with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and I will invite any questions, thoughts, comments, reflections that our participants might have.
Well, Amit, thank you very much. Good summary. Uh, I think in terms of the abstraction of idea, inclusion, diversity, equity, accessibility, and you try to imagine goals that you can measure, some way to say, hey, well, we're going down the right path. We're accomplishing what we hope to accomplish. I was struck with your numbers, the white, non-white. My guess is, I know here in Buffalo, we declined population roughly 1% a year for 60 years. And then suddenly this last decade leveled off, started to increase. But most of that would have been non-white people coming to the city itself. And I'm wondering if Chautauqua County is that a similar experience? We have the
Yes.
Fredonia, Dunkirk, you mentioned Jamestown. Those are your big cities, so to speak, for the county. Is that a similar experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when we look at the 2010 census and 2020 census, it tells a story, right? Because that's where we're capturing not only the number of people, but racial and ethnic demographic information, and that data tells a very clear story. So the percentage of people of color and multiracial people as well is the only categories that are growing. Some of them are staying steady. So the African American community stayed steady. So in the sense that not as many African Americans left as a percentage, Chautauqua County compared to white folks. And this is where, like, I try to really, some people get really tied up at this idea that this is about political correctness and all that kind of stuff. I really try to focus on what are the challenges of our local community. So if you know anything about the healthcare industry, about 1/3, if you look at the healthcare industry nationally, so I'm talking everybody from doctors to phlebotomists to nurse practitioners, about 1/3 nationally of healthcare providers in this country are of Asian descent, right? So when we are in this community are having challenges finding doctors and finding nurses and finding healthcare aides and having challenges recruiting and retaining people to work in nursing homes, if we don't create the conditions for those folks to be able to come here, to be able to raise a family, to feel like they belong here, what is that going to do for our community long term, right? So we kind of really have to think about how all of our destinies are interconnected here, and that's kind of the hard conversations that we're going to, because sometimes people, given the political climate in the country, sometimes folks go to a very polarized view very quickly around why these conversations are important, and we're trying to really get to let me be really clear in saying that there are very good moral and ethical and historical reasons why we need to work on racial equity. So I'm not putting any of that, I'm not ignoring history in that. And for folks who are not quite there yet, what is the strategic argument then, right? To bring them into the fold. So they're at least that they're willing to be at the table. I hope I answered your question.
Well, I would think most people should be united around their region growing, prospering, and that I don't know how you can be against that. Let's put it that way. So, Melissa, do we have some questions?
We do. So the first question is, will the audience have an opportunity to ask questions of the panel on Buffalo Day?
Good questions. For time permitting, I'm just going to say yes. So what we do, we have moved to a moderated question system. So you kind of write your questions and send it to the moderator, because what we find is sometimes there is a mad rush to get to the mic, and sometimes people do less question asking and more storytelling. So we want to be really careful that we're using the time of our panelists and our community together. So, but yes, we would absolutely love for you to submit your questions. So I'm going to make a mental note for myself as a moderator to invite folks to, quickly scribble something down and say, please ask this question.
So physically, they could ask them writing it down. Not
and just write it down, and we have ushers, and they're gonna bring not all questions. We usually get like 20, 30 questions, and then I, as a moderator, what I usually do is I look at themes. This person asked the question this way, this person, but really they're trying to get to a central concept. So I try to do your question justice.
Go ahead. Anything else?
Are there any other Buffalo related activities during the week that Buffalo Day takes place?
Off the top of my head, I don't believe so.
No.
I think that the theme for that week is what are our greatest challenges and what can we do about them, right? So in that way, I would broadly say some of the speakers we have coming that week, whether they're talking about climate change or journalism, like those things exist all across the country. Is it Buffalo specific for the rest of the week? I don't know that is the case.
Well, I'll always say it for 15 years I've been, and this is the 15th annual Buffalo Day, by the way.
15. Thank you. Wow.
For 15 years, I've given a course every Monday in the library at 4 o'clock, and at 3 o'clock I bring in a speaker. J.D. Hartman will be the speaker, and it'll be about how we invest and the correlation of investments. So that's Monday. And that's at the Smith Memorial Library. But no, other than that, it's not Buffalo Week, it's Buffalo Day. and we're delighted for that. Other questions?
Can I just say one more thing about that? If that week's theme or any of our weekly themes, speak to you, we have moved our Chautauqua Assembly, which is the recordings and the live lectures every morning, Monday through Friday for 9 weeks. We have a weekly theme, and at 10:45 a.m. there's a live lecture. You can subscribe via YouTube to our Chautauqua Assembly. It's only, I think, like $5 to be able to see the live lectures, or for $3 a month to see the recorded lectures. It is a great way to stay connected to the ideas and things that are being discussed at Chautauqua. So I would highly encourage you to do so.
By the way, the last 2 years, I think it was live streamed to your national audience, the Buffalo Day 3:30 panel. I believe this year's will be as well, but maybe or one way or the other. Maybe you've heard.
I may have to check on that off the top of my head. I don't know, but if folks are interested, please go to assembly.chq.org. So I don't know if you're able to type that in, Melissa, assembly.chq.org, and you can find out more information there.
And will the programs on Buffalo Day, so you kind of mentioned it already being live streamed, will they be recorded anywhere for people to watch later if they can't make it?
The every morning lecture, the 10:45 lecture, and the afternoon lecture, the 2 p.m. lecture. So Saurabh Amari and Margaret Sullivan will both live cast and recorded and available. The symphony, for music rights and other reasons, we don't record or broadcast that because our music rights are limited to that live performance.
Ahmed, you wouldn't be aware of it, but since 2010, I've recorded an audio recording of everything I've been involved with at Chautauqua. And I upload that to Internet Archive. You can go on the C-SAAHN audio catalog, actually.
Okay.
Have access to over 1,300 recordings from Buffalo and Chautauqua.
That's amazing.
Again, always with permission and always the ones that
Sure.
I'm involved with typically. So it's my content. Hope that's helpful.
That is great. Thank you for sharing.
Those were all the questions.
You know, if it is a live audience, the moderator then will get questions sometimes, Amit, from that exterior audience like that out there. So that's another input session, basically.
Right. And so for anybody who's in the auditorium, and so either in the amphitheater or in the Hall of Philosophy for the 10:45 lecture, the 2 lecture, the 3:30 p.m. panel, you can ask live questions there. But the 10:45 and 2, if you're live on our assembly platform, you can also ask live questions over there. So if you are not physically present, but you're watching the lecture live, your questions pop right up. We have all kinds of systems so that the moderator on stage is receiving those questions that are submitted online and via a written paper.
As you can imagine, and sorry for the raspy voice, but as you can imagine, May 14th of 2022 was a major event here in Buffalo, obviously. What happened? A kid from Binghamton drives a couple hundred miles, finds the racially concentrated zip code, and then takes a supermarket, Tops, and shoots as many people of color as he did. 10 died. And so to some degree, the antidote I have felt for that is to see, we've known for years the discrepancies in zip codes, educationally, wealth, how far you, who owns homes, who doesn't. Everything is about zip codes. And that's what this kid found. So the only way I know to equalize that is how, to some degree, Buffalo Day being free for everybody in 44 different zip codes, 14201 to 14280. That's a big swath of Buffalo. Make it free, and it's our little rebellion against the inequities that exist elsewhere with zip codes. Best shot I can get to finish then. Last year's Buffalo Day had Michelle Urbanchik, executive director of the Children's Museum, the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Children's Museum. And she spoke very enthusiastically about a program we initiated, again, taking fourth graders, new fourth graders, in those 44 zip codes and saying, you're free with your parents at the Children's Museum. They were overwhelmed with new fourth graders. We think we did well over half of all the fourth graders in the region. We're renewing that again, but we're limiting it to fourth Saturdays. And I call it the Imagine Greater Buffalo Fourth Saturday at Explore and More. And that kicks off this Saturday, June 22nd. We'll have another one on July 27th, I think it is. And then the fourth Saturday in August. So those 3 months just for graduates from third grade going into fourth grade and their families. So be mindful of that. Buffalo Day is the same free zip codes related invitation. So that's the best I can offer from a standpoint of looking at zip codes in a different way and saying, let's make a level playing field and make everybody free at Chautauqua, at the Exploring More Children's Museum, those types of things, and expand that. You, to me, at Chautauqua is an expansion of Buffalo. We don't often think of Chautauqua 80 miles away as an extension of Buffalo, but you are in New York State. You're part of the education system of New York. You're under the same DEC and all the state regulations as New York.
Sure.
So from my standpoint, we're the largest metropolitan area that you are connected to here in New York State. So why not see you as a wonderful summer extension of our cultural mainstays?
Mhm.
That's the essence of the Buffalo Chautauqua idea. And we've been plugging along trying to connect those two dots, because you are a global of global importance. And for us to associate with you enhances us, in my estimation. And I'd like to think, and this program is an example of it coming up on Buffalo Day, you seem to think by connecting with Buffalo, that can be helpful to you as well.
Mhm.
So let's go. I also have to give a plug for our Buffalo AKG Art Museum. They're the only other ones I know that are articulating an IDEA look and having it permeate the system. They don't have an Amit in charge of it like Chautauqua does, but they do have the idea. And I think that's important for us to know here. I see it in the artists selected and the treatment of people. It's a free space in many ways, available to many people, not the whole museum, but much of it. So that's the idea, equalized level. That's one goal. That's one way I would see progress being made. All right, folks, Amit, thank you again. Well done. We'll see you in, we'll see you as I start hanging out at Chautauqua. So folks, thank you again for joining us and all season long here at Zoom. The Imagine program will return in September, right after Labor Day. So visit imaginelifelonglearning.com for details. Also, remember those dates. June 22nd is the first of 3 4th Saturday at Explore and More. And Buffalo Day, one day, July 23rd, Tuesday. And you know the zip codes, 44 zip codes. For both of those, you're all free, 14201 to 14280. Hope you can participate in as many of these activities as possible. I'm Dennis Galucki. Be well and good day.
Thank you.